Hey, I'm Rejected Shotgun. Cut content in Halo games is always a treat, as the development of the games was always relatively hush-hush, meaning we never got much insight into what made the cut versus what didn't. There's a community of Halo fans who often buy up old Xbox development kits in the hope of finding old builds of Halo games on them. Over the past few years, there have been some seriously great finds, one of those recently being an alpha build of Halo Reach. Within the build was tons of cool stuff, and while I don't have the means of actually running these builds on Xbox development kits and toying with the cut content within them, I follow people who do, and I'm always amazed by what's in them. About a year ago, I saw this post here from Zedekins on Twitter of a really awesome looking vehicle from the Halo Reach alpha build. It looks to be one of the Wombat drones from Halo 3 ODST, the ones that fly overhead and are seen in a cutscene on Uplift Reserve. But this one is heavily modified and redone in Halo Reach's art style. It's also no longer a drone, but a pilotable space fighter with an added cockpit and everything. Now, I don't know the specifics, but I think it's safe to assume this was being used in some capacity as a space fighter on the Long Night of Solace mission before the final Sabre vehicle was either created or finished. Another possibility is that this was being prototyped in multiplayer, as there's evidence that Bungie did have plans for a multiplayer space fighting level. Regardless of its intention, I knew the moment I saw this that I had to get my hands on it and turn it into a functioning vehicle. However, like I mentioned before, I don't have the means to do that. Luckily for me, I know some people who do. And after getting my hands on the model while I was streaming some modding on YouTube, I went ahead and implemented it on a huge map I've been working on recently. As a side note, if you do like Halo mods, I'll just take this moment really quickly to encourage you to subscribe for more and maybe even check out my streams I do here on YouTube while I'm live. I stream several times a week, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll know exactly when. Anyway, over several days of work, I took this model and its textures and I did an absolute ton of work bringing this to life as a fully functioning vehicle with all the required bits for multiplayer functionality. So without any further ado, let's jump in game so I can give you a little overview on this vehicle and show you how it works. Welcome to Huge Grass. This is the map I've been developing the fighter drone here from Halo Reach on, and it looks pretty darn nice. One of the first things you may think when you see this is, why are we in Halo 3? This is a Halo Reach cut vehicle. And the answer is actually pretty straightforward. I just have been modding a lot of Halo 3 lately, and the reason I even added this and tried to get my hands on the model is because I needed a fighter jet type vehicle to fit in with my recreation of the classic custom edition map, Huge Ass. And here it is. While I will be implementing this in Reach soon, I thought it would be a great addition to this map. Before I jump into this, I do want to point out that this landing gear here was not actually present in the original model. I added it for gameplay reasons because realistically, with the ability to land in this hangar, it's gonna work a lot better. Before it was just kind of stuck with its nose on the floor and it was kind of awkward. Okay, let's jump on in. First thing you may notice is that I did in fact give it proper engine effects. From the screenshots I saw of this in Halo Reach originally, it did not have these fiery orange engines, but they were in fact blue and very, very unfinished and unpolished. But for the sake of making it here in Halo 3 as a fighter jet, I figured cool orange kind of jet flaming engines would be cool. And when I pull forward on the throttle, it reflects that even further. I had some people in my stream chat tell me that using a modern fighter jet engine as a good baseline would be nice for this thing, and I agree. I think these engines look really great, and I'm very happy with how they came out. Not only does this thing have cool fighter jet style engines, but if you go ahead and boost with it, though you can't really see it in first person unless you turn super quickly on keyboard and mouse, it's got these nice contrails that a jet might have on a very humid day, as it quickly turns the air behind it very, very hot. From the third person perspective, it looks pretty darn cool, and you can get a sense for how fast this vehicle is. One thing you might think when I'm on a map this big is that this vehicle really isn't that fast, especially if it's supposed to be a fighter jet, at least in this Halo 3 implementation that I've made. I would quickly like to point out though that this map is enormous, and even when you're going very fast on a map of this scale, you kind of feel like you're going slowly because all of the scale of the trees and rocks are very, very big. But as you can see, when you're on the ground and this thing flies overhead, yeah, it's not exactly slow. As for the weapon arsenal on this thing, it does have a pretty standard Hornet loadout for now, though I do have plans to improve this and tweak it in the future. If I go ahead and fire missiles, you can see they go ahead and fire quite quickly. There are these two big missiles on the bottom, which is where I'm actually firing the missiles from. While I did have plans at one point to make those missiles kind of pop off and reload, I came to the conclusion that realistically, those missiles are huge, and if they impacted the ground, it would be weird if they weren't enormous. But I wanted this to be a relatively balanced, for gameplay reasons, type fighter, and that meant going with a smaller scale set of weapons, and not just taking the quote-unquote lore-accurate missiles on the bottom and using them as they appear visually. Of course, this thing also has some pretty basic Hornet weapons, nothing to write home about, but still good for gameplay reasons. Now, as for something very cool on this, I spent a long time, probably like 4 or 5 hours, putting together full-on damage states for this vehicle. For those that don't know, damage states are when a vehicle takes damage and the model changes. Like when you blow open the hood of a Warthog and you can see inside and there's fire. This vehicle has that, albeit in a slightly simpler way. If I try to run into this tree at a kind of medium speed here, you'll see a little fire explosion will go off, smoke will begin to come out of my engine, sparks come out, and the model now is a bit scuffed. There's some metal pulled apart, the wings are a little bit messy, and overall it's not looking too hot. Before I damage this even further, there's something else that I did to the vehicle physics that's kind of fun, where if you pull back completely on the throttle, you drop like a rock. Gravity kicks in, and if you don't save yourself right at the last second with the engine power going forward, chances are you're going to hit the ground pretty hard, which is also pretty good for testing out the next damage state. So if I pull back completely, shut the engines off, I will hit the ground. And just like that, I take a lot of damage from gravity there. Now you can see there is fire coming out of the left, I think that's like an air intake. Not really sure what Bungie was intending there. And on the right engine, on the front, there's some smoke pouring out. The sparks are still coming out, and everything is really, really mangled. Even the left engine, or the right wing there, is kind of pulled apart. I put some exposed internals on it, and really tried my best to make this look like it wasn't having a great time. So yeah, if you see this thing flying by with smoke and fire pouring out, and a bunch of mangled wings and metal, you're probably going to assume this thing is a good target to shoot at. Now, there is a final damage state. I'm going to have to really try my best to show it off here. I'm going to go into Forge mode and let this thing fly away and hit the ground hard. There you go. A nice big explosion, and it rips in half nicely. As you can see, fire pours out of the area where the cockpit slammed off, and the cockpit itself is a totally separate object over here. Its internals showing. Might spruce this up with some extra effects later on in some other streams, but yeah, it looks pretty decent, I'd say. Not the best ever, but with some polish work, I think I could make this substantially improved. And also, once I finally go into Halo Reach and create this as a vehicle there where it deserves to be, I think I'll make this look even better. But even in its current implementation, I'm pretty happy. So there you have it. This is the cut Halo Reach Space Fighter. I like to call it the Wombat because that's what it was called in Halo 3 ODST when it was a drone, but I suppose technically this is a different vehicle. Nonetheless, it's a really, really cool piece of cut content. I'm happy to have gotten my hands on the models and textures for it, and have been able to turn it into a proper vehicle. If you like this video, do be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and check out my streams if you're interested. They're a nice way to kill some time, or maybe just something fun and chill to throw on in the background if you like the idea of putting a little bit more Halo into your day. Anyway, I'm Rejected Shotgun, signing off. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye now.